Welcome to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast. If someone in your life has BPD, you know how difficult it can be, and you need to learn how to heal from those toxic relationships. And that's where this show comes in. Expert education, expert knowledge, expert insight, and delivered with compassion and empathy. With your host, counselor and trauma recovery coach, AJ Mahari. To purchase and book sessions with AJ, go to ajmahari.ca. Now your host, AJ Mahari.
People who manifest borderline personality disorder in that so-called quiet way, the subtype is called discouraged borderline personality disorder. So this is people who internalize everything. And for so many people that have been in a relationship with a person with quiet BPD, or may still be, or on and off in the limbo, etc., you might really wonder what's going on, because I've had so many clients explain to me that even when they start to look up BPD or Google something about what's happening in the push-pull, etc., or the silent treatment, or why won't this person talk to me? Why does my boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife keep just like withdrawing and like disappearing, maybe ghosting, taking this kind of like really not, quote, normal, unquote, space? What's it all about? When people start to Google and then to find videos, it can take a while to find out more about the quiet borderline, which is one of the 4 subtypes developed by Theodore Million, called the discouraged borderline, which is quite an entirely different and really opposite expression and manifestation of borderline personality disorder than, for example, the petulant borderline, the acting out, classic, raging, picking fights with you all the time. Because when you start dating that type of person with BPD, and not everybody gets an idealization phase, but with the idealization phase with anybody with BPD or suspected BPD, the patterns of BPD, there's going to be that intense, oh, so intense. You like them, but they really, really, really like you. They're mirroring you. They're people-pleasing you from their codependence as well. And people with BPD can also have limerence. So they can be very infatuated with you, and you might be getting very infatuated with them. And it's the siren song of it's all really too good to be true. The people with codependency have this voracious emotional hunger from childhood woundedness to one degree or another, to varying degrees, that doesn't always come from really abusive parents, by the way. You can develop codependency, and you can end up in a trauma bond with somebody with borderline personality disorder or all the patterns of, and not really know where it came from in your childhood. Many of you will identify with codependency. Many of you might be puzzled by it. But the thing is, it just takes one codependent trait to really get you into this type of relationship and for you to go through all that people go through. So back to the quiet borderline. And why is this so different? Why is this so much more painful? Because it is. And I mean, I've been working with clients to help them heal from these relationships, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife with BPD, a mother, you're the adult child, a sibling, any relationship type. But the quiet borderline. So we'll stick within romantic relationships right now. And mostly for men. And if some women are listening, I hope you can just change certain words around. But for most men in a relationship with a really quiet borderline woman, especially if you just date. Like, what if you're dating, you're in the relationship, as so many of my clients have described to me, and clients I'm working with now, and I've been working with clients for 34 years in this area of my expertise to help others heal. What I often hear, maybe somebody's dating a woman, or you could be a woman dating a man with BPD. You might not know that yet at all, or in the beginning, and things are just going great. Like, things are just great in that relationship. There's the idealization phase. There's a honeymoon phase. They're not really seeing you. They don't really hear you. But they're infatuated with you. they really want your attention. They're starting to depend on you. They need, you to be in sync with them, because if not, they'll feel abandoned. And you're like, this is great. This is the best. This is the woman or the man for me. Maybe not within a week or 3 weeks, but things happen intensely and quickly. Often the person with BPD will be expressing, how much they love you. You are the greatest person they've ever met in every which way, shape, and form they can describe it to you. They want to do everything you want to do. They're interested in everything you're interested in. Every hobby, every little thing that you might have ever wanted to do or been doing in your life. I was scuba diving upside down without any equipment. I'm just saying, who does that? Nobody. But the borderline, if you tell them that, they'll go, hey, me too. I love that. I love that. This podcast episode is not only to talk about quiet BPD, the discouraged borderline, but to also really focus in on the shock of the way that so many of you and so many of the clients I'm working with now and have worked with in the past, it's like you're dating this person. And it might be a 3-month relationship, a 2-month relationship, before all of a sudden they're just like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. If they say anything, or like, I can't do this, or this is over, or you did whatever, and so I don't want to know you anymore. Or maybe they just ghost and discard you. And you're like, what happened? Because really, nothing happened. Something happened inside the discouraged quiet borderline, but nothing otherwise that you could have possibly discerned, understood, or even noticed really that was wrong. Was there something wrong? I have clients going, there was nothing wrong. It was all wonderful. And then boom, one day, he or she said, well, no, like you could be having wonderful physical intimacy, nice dinner, slept together, then in the same bed after, being active, cuddling. Everything is just wonderful. And suddenly, then they go away. You go to work, maybe they go out, but they just kind of back away. And you're wondering, well, I haven't heard from them today. And the next thing you know, if not that day, the next day, you'll get a text or something, and it'll just be like, you can say various different things, but like, I can't be with you anymore. I don't want to date you anymore. You made me feel blah, 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 and I'm done. If you hear anything at all. And that is an extra special shock. That is a really traumatic shock. So even if it's a 2-month relationship, dating, 7 months, dating, really thinking this is going to develop into the relationship of your life that you've always been waiting for, that this is going to be your soulmate. And all of a sudden, boom, they're gone. And people are just beyond in worlds of hurt. Because what is that? What is the discouraged borderline? Because there are 4 subtypes, like I said, this being one of them. When a person suffers from discouraged BPD, in other words, is a quiet borderline, much of how they think, feel, and behave is driven by the dependent aspects of their personality disorder. So they can be more needy, more clingy, and much more dependent. And in fact, from an outside perspective, a person with this discouraged borderline personality disorder might look a bit like someone with dependent personality disorder. This person displays signs of codependence in their own right in most relationships in life. They can also have limerence, that infatuation, that instantaneous feeling of loving somebody that you don't even know, but they really aren't loving you in any healthy way. And of course, people with codependency who aren't cluster B can also experience limerence. Not everybody does, but many people do and may not be aware of what that means or what that brings to your experience. The dependence of a discouraged borderline type is often most noticeable when they become dependent on a person with whom dependence is inappropriate. So a casual friend or a boyfriend or girlfriend who they just started dating. A person with this subtype of BPD might seem outwardly depressed or serious, especially when compared to some of the other borderline personality disorder subtypes. Discouraged borderline is marked by noticeable clinginess and a passive follower type of mentality. While on the outside, this person might just seem indecisive or at worst weak-willed or confused, they normally experience internal turmoil about their lack of leadership and bitterness towards those around them because they really don't know who they are. It's that unstable sense of identity again. This type of borderline personality disorder in a person might yield a lot of self-harm in the form of like cutting and or even wanting to unalive themselves. So both men and women have borderline personality disorder and can develop the discouraged borderline subtype, though the diagnosis is seen in more in women than men, which continues to be contentious out there because is it really? I don't think anybody really knows. But this might be related to the possible neurobiological factor of estrogen levels or perhaps a bias created by institutionalized sexism. And I'm not one to throw around the word misogyny that often because I don't think it applies to the majority of men by any means, but I think there is that bias institutionally and in the task force and the psychiatric groups that write the DSMs, because we don't hear enough about males with BPD. So some research has suggested that this disorder actually does affect men and women equally, but then women are more likely to seek treatment, be encouraged to seek treatment, or to be officially diagnosed or misdiagnosed as BPD. This diagnosis usually is not made until adolescence at the earliest, and it is typically made before young adulthood comes to a close. Well, that's only if somebody bothers to be anywhere near a mental health professional. And a lot of people with discouraged quiet BPD, even in teen years, where that's not definitively diagnosed, may have unaliving attempts, etc., and come to the attention of the mental health system and thus be diagnosed due to that, or many attempts of that nature. It's estimated that around 1.6 of Americans have borderline personality disorder in any given year. I think the stats are higher. What are the signs? Because I'm not gonna go over the signs of borderline personality disorder here, but because you can read and find them everywhere. But what are the signs of discouraged, quiet, borderline personality disorder, that subtype? There are many different signs and symptoms of BPD, according to the DSM-5. But these signs, that I'm about to mention now, are signs that are looked for when attempting to diagnose borderline personality disorder or the discouraged borderline subtype, the quiet borderline. And these are considered to be impairments in personality functioning. So the first one is impairments in self-functioning. These types of impairments might include an unstable or poor self-image, excessive self-criticism, chronic feelings of emptiness and stress-induced dissociative states. This might also include instability in goals, values, career plans, general aspirations, and they're not quite sure who they really want to be with. They want to be with you and very intensely, but then maybe they think they don't want to be with you, and suddenly, to you, they'll just ghost and discard you, and you won't know what happened. That's another example of what happens for so many people, because their changeability, if they meet somebody else and they just get a little bit intrigued and they have that emptiness inside, they can just start following them and idealizing them, and the next thing you know, they're busy with somebody at that monkey branching effect, and you're like, what's going on? And then you're discarded. And a second example of what is really happening and signs of the discouraged quiet borderline, impairments in interpersonal functioning. These types of impairments might include decreased levels of empathy, which can manifest as lowered ability to understand the position of others, a heightened and dramatic sensitivity to perceived criticism or rejection, black and white thinking, especially regarding people and especially regarding anyone they're dating or in a relationship with. And most people are seen as good, or all bad. Impairments in interpersonal functioning might also include intimacy issues. These types of issues might arise as incredibly intense and unstable relationships marked by high conflict, mistrust, clinginess, fear of abandonment, and either over-involvement or withdrawal at different times. And so the high conflict really is going to, in the discouraged quiet borderline, isn't really going to be there. There might be some sense of conflict or some sense that maybe something's off, but when you don't know what you're dealing with, you just think, well, maybe because this or that they told you upset them, or they talked to a parent, something happened with their family. It's really easy for people. I've had so many clients tell me about all the reasons that they thought why suddenly the person that they were dating or in a long-term relationship or married to, when they just withdrew, they went away, they sort of just ghosted. And people thought, well, maybe they're just so many people think, well, maybe they're just really upset about whatever, this, that, or the other, and everything will be okay. But often, that's when they just discard. So there are other signs that distinguish a person with borderline personality disorder from others, and some of these symptoms generally cross all the subtypes of BPD. May include unstable emotional experiences, moodiness, easily aroused emotions, triggered dysregulated emotions that are significantly intense or disproportionate to the cause of the emotion or the situation, increased nervousness, tension, worry, panic, or general anxiety, fixation on unpleasant experiences from the past or possible unpleasant experiences that they fear are going to happen in the future, fearfulness and uncertainty, discomfort with uncertainty, a fear of losing control, a fear of rejection, separation anxiety, rejection sensitivity, excessive dependency and loss of autonomy, or a fear of inevitable loss of self, because this has already really happened to people with BPD, so they can relive that in an unconscious way. Depressed or hopeless feelings, definitely going to be shame, but they may not be aware of that consciously. Unaliving thoughts or behaviors, impulsivity, difficulty creating or sticking to plans, always changing their minds. They want to do something really badly, and then as it gets close to you're about to go do it, they're like, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like it anymore. Dangerous risk-taking behavior without regard for the consequences. Hostility, especially in relation to perceived criticism or rejection. And again, you're not going to really see that hostility from a quiet, discouraged borderline. Dissociation or zoning out and difficulty concentrating. Specific signs of the discouraged, quiet borderline include loyalty, even to an excessive degree, pliant and easily swayed by others, even when it goes against their own desires, submissive and passive, even when desiring a leading role, humble as a result of low self-esteem, insecurity, and vulnerability. It goes along with that neediness of often the quiet, discouraged borderline. Constant feelings of vulnerability and weakness, constant feelings of being in jeopardy. They don't feel emotionally safe because they don't know who they are, and they're so busy with their feelings and the internal reality of what they're experiencing that they don't really see who you are. Constant feelings of being in jeopardy, feeling hopeless, helpless, powerless, and depressed, but they might not be aware that they're feeling those things. Excessive dependence on others, tearful episodes, feelings of emptiness, self-persecution and self-victimization, believing others are constantly attacking or ill-meaning, destruction or intentional loss of belongings, whether through physical violence, again, not so much with the quiet, discouraged borderline, but they might do that when they're alone, towards belongings, or a cycling of acquiring and then giving away or selling things that when they bought them they really wanted and wanted them and meant something to them, but then they don't care about that whatever they bought, and they just want to give it away. Reliance on fantasy as a means to escape, often engaged in fantasy-based media, novels, movies, comics, that type of thing. Chronic or recurring illness complaints, sometimes somatic, so based on a body feeling, and maybe there's really not a lot going on there, but that can be part of the neurotic presentation in BPD, whether it's discouraged, quiet borderline or not. Self-deprivation as opposed to self-indulgence, rooted in feelings of worthlessness, so being really hard on themselves, taking that introjected wounding parent and then turning that inward on themselves. So really believing that they are what they heard from an abusive parent in childhood, and often substance abuse. So people with quiet discouraged BPD have all this going on, but they do internalize it. They don't externalize it. They don't talk to you about it. They don't tell you about it. And in fact, when they're really struggling the most internally, they can be pummeling themselves with negatives and discouraged borderlines, just a quiet borderline, just like any person with BPD or the patterns of BPD. They really look at life largely often through a really negative lens. So some people are more high functioning. They might maintain a career. Many people with BPD in general and the subtype quiet borderline, discouraged borderline are extremely intellectually intelligent and may have really demanding and powerful jobs and careers. And they're more defended, really. And of course, they internalize everything, so they tend to be able to function better in work environments, etc. Not all of them, but many of them. And this is a sign, this is something that complicates whether they'll get treatment or get diagnosed or not, because they are much more defended, and a lot of psychiatry still is looking for the petulant, classic, raging, acting out, potentially low-functioning person who could be diagnosed with BPD. So a lot of people with quiet BPD, discouraged BPD, they're very high-functioning, and they're a little bit more defended than the lower-functioning, more acting out people with BPD. So when they're really going through something, or they've really been triggered, which is not your fault, by the way, then they're going to want to withdraw. Then you're going to experience the silent treatment, and or they might ghost you. They might block you on social media, block your number, and then unblock you 2 days later or whatever. Each person with BPD, and especially the quiet, discouraged borderline, might have patterns of withdrawal, patterns of needing space, patterns of blocking and unblocking. And some of them can be really predictable. Like they'll do it every 2 days, they'll do it for a day and a half, they'll do it overnight, they'll do it for a week, they'll do it for 2 weeks. But if there's any kind of elongated space taking, or they continue to ask for space, there's all kinds of possibility with more than 50% of the quiet discouraged borderlines that they're definitely starting to meet someone else, or they know someone else, and then they start to idealize someone else, because with that valuation split, they can happen so quickly, and you're not going to really realize it's happening with the quiet discouraged borderline. They then start looking to someone else, or maybe they already met someone else, even if they haven't cheated yet. But they start to listen to other kinds of music. They start to dress differently. They might dye their hair. They might be wearing different clothes. It often means they have monkey branched, but it often means maybe they're just starting to find another person that they're lining up because they see you as all bad now. You've been painted black, so somebody else comes along and they're going to be painted all white, because people with BPD in general, but it's the quiet, discouraged borderline, they live in that black or in that white. And once they get you into that all painted black, they're really not ever going to see you. They're not going to re-idealize you. They're not going to see who you thought they saw in you, right? Or seeing you like in the beginning with the idealization. And even in the beginning of idealization with people with BPD in general, they're really not seeing you. So they're aligning with you for often unconscious reasons, and they're head over heels about you and all of that. But the thing with the quiet borderline, the discouraged borderline, that's really what people need to think about, is they're just so often there one day and everything's fine as far as you know, and then they're gone. And it is a more shocking type of ghosting at times, but then you never know if it's a ghosting. Maybe they come back, maybe you get to get in touch with them, but then it becomes a discard at some point. And it could be a discard right off the bat. And it could be that they say something to you like, I'm done. No, I don't feel like I used to feel. I don't want to be with you anymore. I can't be with you anymore. And then they might say something like, oh, you're a narcissist. You did be. But the quiet borderline, discouraged borderline doesn't even really kind of explain much. they just get gone. And then you're just sitting there going like, what happened? And it's really extra shocking. It's very different from the experience of a petulant borderline, for example, because there's been all this yelling, there's been all this fighting, there's been all these conversations, there's been all this like really, really good and all this really, really bad. That so many people and clients I'm working with now and have been for, over the years, when you're with a quiet or discouraged borderline, first of all, you don't know what's happening. You don't know what all that's about. And so it really is a shock. And then the thing that most people go to is, what did I do? What happened? I must have done something wrong. Like, they were just the most amazing woman or man I've ever been with. And this has to be like, surely we can work it out. Like, why did I just get blocked? What is this? It's a total shock. So it is, don't want to compare really, but it is even more painful and devastating often for partners, and most of you have some codependency, and I know a lot of people don't like to keep hearing that, but it's a devastating shock because then you really think you did something wrong. You're like, I must have caused this because they were just great. And if you've only had happy, intensely positive experience with a quiet discouraged borderline, which a lot of my clients are reporting and talking about, quite understandably, because you don't get any negativity or argument or pick or any of that stuff with a quiet discouraged borderline. Sometimes you might get a little, but not much, if any. And boom, they're gone. And how can you not be then thinking that, oh my God, I blew this. What did I do? What's wrong with me? This is what so many clients describe. And I guess in a situation before you start Googling, or if you've never heard of BPD, will make a lot of sense. You think, oh my God, what did I do? What's wrong with me? Why don't they love me anymore? Why don't they like me anymore? This was great. But it's not true. And it's not your fault. And if you're in the active throes right now of a recent or even a still really painful, just like such shock, discard, or breakup with a quiet discouraged borderline that your rumination is off the scales, you can't focus. I work with so many clients that whether it's a woman, who's been with a borderline man, but it's usually more men, and there's a lot of reasons for this, and I mean this with all due respect, guys, that sometimes, there's a lot of people who will get this, boom, discard, blocked, everything's over, and it comes, as far as you know, just out of the clear blue, and it's devastating. And a lot of people then feel like there's no reason to go on because you blame yourself so much, and or it triggers you back to something from your childhood, maybe where you had an abandonment wound, some shame wound, some woundedness in childhood. But it's not like you're going to be aware necessarily of what that is. Some people are, lots of people aren't. But I just want to let you know that if you're still reeling from being with a quiet, discouraged borderline, or something has just happened recently for you, you need to get into help. I'm out here to work with people that if you resonate with me. But the thing is, it's not your fault. Please hear me. It's not your fault. It's how they are. They look at you, everything's great until it's not. And whatever triggers, they're going from the idealizing to the split to the valuation to ghost, which can happen very suddenly with a quiet borderline, like out of the blue when everything was just going fine. It's not your fault. It's what's going on inside of them that they keep from you, that you can't see from the quiet, discouraged borderline in the way that people who have been with, dated, or had a relationship, or a parent, or somebody else with petulant BPD, and there's a lot of problems going on here. And maybe the quiet borderline tells you a little bit about their past, says, oh, I've had 2 or 3 or however many ex-boyfriends, or maybe they were married and everybody's hurt them and everybody's been horrible and you really feel for him or her. But the thing is all that accurate? Because when they split you to evaluation and boom, they're gone, and you're like, you don't know what happened, so you're blaming yourself. Then people often also are hurt by, they ask me often in working in sessions, so now is she telling everybody that I was as bad as she told me all her exes were? And unfortunately, often, Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And then I want to just also say something about when they monkey branch. And even if they haven't cheated on you, they've emotionally wandered away, right? And that matters. There's like emotional cheating as well, many people would argue. But the thing is, and so then when they get with that next person, and if you find out about it, or you know it, or you know who it is, because maybe you live in a small town, maybe you worked with this person, and that's where you met them, and you have friends, colleagues together, or whatever the case. I just wanna say, I mean, many women are, of course, very angry about this too. But men have a harder time getting to their emotions. So I'm going to be doing an episode soon, more or less just for men. I mean, women are welcome to listen. But about that, when you feel like it's your fault and the anger that builds, and when you know there was somebody else, and the way that you feel like you want to rip that other guy apart, and that people are giving you platitudes like, well, you really dodged a bullet, and you're really lucky if this is the case, right? You didn't have a kid with that woman. You're really lucky. And the point is, that might have some bearing and some substance to it, but it doesn't help you to hear that when you're in this world of hurt place that many clients, when they come to me, first of all, can't even really describe beyond what happened with the person with BPD, and then like they got blocked and whatever, but they still don't know what happened, and they still think it's all their fault. And then they know that maybe that woman was with another guy. And then that feeling, because men are different than women, obviously, right? And women who've been with borderline men, it's a whole different way that women deal with this. I'm not saying it's always, better or easier for them at all, no. But men in what is healthy masculinity, and even in 2024, even though women are all over the map and feminism is in the way, and these women with BPD, whether they're petulant, other subtypes, or the quiet, discouraged borderline, they can be affected by feminism, and they can want a protector and someone who's going to be like their daddy to look and take care of that wounded, emotional, like absence of self in people with BPD. But as much as they might want that or feel they need that, they're going to hate it at the same time because of maybe woundedness from a very abusive father. So the thing is, when men today, there still is all this confusion. It's all confusing now, isn't it? But I think it's still something that many, many men learn as little boys, even in recent years and decades, right? Even as we move forward, we learn so much about this, that, and the other, and a whole bunch of stuff going on in the world that just stresses us out to learn. But a lot of boys are still being really lacking socialization, not being socialized in a way that would help you be able to feel your feelings and know yourself better when you become a man. And so it's this confusion of like, you love the woman, you think this is the greatest woman, this is the one you've been waiting for, this quiet, discouraged borderline. You don't know yet what's going on. And then when they suddenly are gone, it's like, you don't know what you did. You think you did something wrong, like I said. But the thing is, men are still kind of programmed, if you will, or shown in their childhoods that they're to protect women. And I don't think there's anything really wrong with that, But borderline women, and especially, whether discouraged or quiet borderline or not, it's like it's something they want, in a way. It's something that is like pathological with them that they need because they didn't get it from dad or maybe even mom, because things can cross gender from in childhood woundedness and the arrested emotional development. That is still one of the major leading causes of BPD, and then meeting with an invalidating environment. And the thing is, so they might want that protection. They might really like that attention and how you are, just how a man shows masculinity in many different ways, right? Which is healthy. But then they'll hate it too. It's like that, I hate you, don't leave me. This is really important that you, I hope, can hear me when I say, when you're with that quiet, discouraged borderline, and you might not have known it, and you might not have started looking into things to figure it out or find my podcast or other information until they just up and were gone. And you're sure it's your fault. And you're hurting like hell. And you're like, what did I do wrong? I mean, and so many clients tell me, and it's true. Like they'll say, like, I'm a good guy. I really love, when I'm in a relationship with a woman, I like to take care of her. I like to give her gifts. I like to really make her feel important. And some of this might come from codependency, but and they're like, and I just really treat her right. And like, how come? Like, what could I have possibly done wrong? And that can intersect unconsciously with childhood woundedness too. And it can just be like a boatload of shame, and it just hurts like hell. But please know, if you're in this circumstance right now, this has just happened to you, or it happened a while ago, and you're still searching and you don't know what you're going to do, and you want them back, but it isn't working. And by the way, it won't work. You'll just go around the same thing and it'll happen faster. What are you supposed to do, right? Well, I'm out here to work with people that resonate with me, because there is a healing and recovery process, and you can get through this, and you can feel better, and you can go on, and you will be able to meet healthier women, and you will be able to adjust to that change and difference when you heal the wounded inner child, and when you heal from this most injurious relationship. But it's not your fault. It's not your fault. The next guy, if there's already one in the picture, isn't better than you. These people with BPD in general, but the quiet, discouraged, borderline, they're lost. They don't know who they are. This doesn't make up for what they do, but they try so hard to give you, quote, the best of them and please you. And then when they're going through what the petulant borderline will show when they're going through, when the discouraged, quiet borderline is going through the triggers and the fear of abandonment and being close with you, but like that creating a lot of anxiety inside, and the fear of engulfment anxiety, and then they have to get away. And they don't understand any of this. And so the quiet, discouraged borderline often shows no signs of any problem like that's going on inside of him or her. And then you're going to get this total shock. And it isn't the same. These breakups aren't the same as people's breakups with petulant borderlines. And even those are really still extremely painful. But I don't know if there's a more painful, quote, breakup, unquote, that is the sudden, shocking, out of nowhere, quiet, discouraged borderlines discard. And she might say something to you. I've had clients say, yeah, she just said, she took a day, she was distant, it was weird, and then she just told me, I can't be with you anymore. And sometimes they give some reason which makes no sense, and sometimes they don't even say more than that, and sometimes they just discard you and don't say anything. So please know, if you're in a world of hurt right now, whether it just happened, whether you're not sure what's going on, or whether it might have happened a while ago, whatever a while ago means for you, it's not your fault. If you're ruminating, if you can't focus on anything but her or him, and your job is suffering, or you might have a company and you just can't focus, and or you might be working in a career, and like maybe you lose your job and you can't focus and you're depressed, and you might even feel like you want to unalive yourself, because there's so much anger there that is protecting pain, that I think this is a struggle for a lot of men, because it's just so wounding and it comes out of nowhere. And then men have still been taught that for some reason, I've heard this from so many men I've worked with, that they just don't feel like men will get caught up more in the anger, and the anger at the next guy, or being monkey branched from, and get stuck in that more than sort of the pain. The pain is there too, but it's the anger turned inward when men are discarded by these quiet, discouraged borderlines, like out of the blue. Then you turn it in on yourself, and anger turned inward is what really situational depression in these situations and ships and the ghosting and the discards. And then men can get so depressed, they don't want to be here anymore. They don't believe that there could be a woman out there that they could ever have a good relationship with, or how can you trust women anymore? And a lot of men have been through a lot of these relationships, or have had more than one cluster B relationship, but maybe not ever with the quiet, discouraged, borderline type before. So again, just remember, it's not your fault. You do need some help to work this all through, to understand it, to talk about it, to be heard. Because so many of my clients tell me, family members, a sibling, brothers or sisters, buddies of theirs will say, will listen to you. They care about you. They love you, right? They're your buddies. They're your family, friends, etc. But they don't know what you're talking about. And you just had this devastating, or maybe it's a while ago, you had this devastating, bringing discard from this woman that you thought she was the woman of your dreams, and nothing went wrong, and all of a sudden she was gone. And then the people around you don't understand, usually, have never heard of borderline personality disorder. And then, even after a couple weeks or a month or so, you're still trying to talk about it because it's like you don't know what's happened and you're in a world of hurt, or maybe you're feeling like tremendously hurt and you're focused on the rumination, the cognitive dissonance, etc. But you might be really, really angry, and then if you're holding that in, turning it on you, you might be really depressed. All of this, and then the people that you seek support from, family members or buddies, are saying, well, dude, I care about you, but I've heard this 20 times. How come you're still talking about her? What's going on with you? Because you, why don't you just get out there and get another woman? What's wrong with you? How come you are not over her yet? And then there can be platitudes that come along that actually make sense, like you dodged a bullet and this and that. But it doesn't help people when they're in the active throes of this agony of not understanding what just happened. And more to the point, feeling like it's your fault. It's not your fault. And also, what happens to you when this happens is it also will trigger something back from your childhood. And you may not be aware of that at all, or what it is. And some people are, and some people aren't at all. I just want to say this for men. You're human beings. You don't have to be in the feminist narrative of the toxic masculinity that you have to be this way or that way, or do this or never do that, or don't show your feelings, or all that feminist crap that's screwing up so many men today. I mean, different generations and younger generations, it's worse, but men and women are, even if not that you end up with a cluster B and you're going through this agony, men and women are often really confused today. I've heard that from men and from women, that they just don't know what the other sex is about anymore, the other gender is about anymore. There's a whole lot of reasons for that, right? And that's not the most important thing when you're in this world of hurt. I just really wanted to say, be careful that you're not taking the anger, covering all your pain with anger at if there's the next guy already, and how much you'd like to rip him apart. And yeah, it's healthy to be angry, but I think in working with clients, I found out from a lot of men that they're really afraid of their anger, because sometimes they get really close to acting on it. They just want to pummel and pulverize the next guy, right? But you didn't do anything wrong, and the next guy isn't better than you, and it's not about you. You're hurting, that's about you. You need to heal, that's about you. You need to learn to focus on you, that's about you, because you matter. But you might not feel like you matter because this woman just discarded you. And you're like I said before, well, it must be my fault. What's wrong with me? I'm a good guy and everything, but I couldn't do anything good enough. I couldn't do it right enough. I gave her this, I gave her that, I did this, I did that. Why would you do this to me? And then, on top of the fact of how intensely things begin, even if I've had clients that won't even, and I'm not minimizing, but clients that have dated a quiet, discouraged borderline for only 2 months or a matter of weeks, and they feel totally lost to themselves, turned upside down, blown away, devastated, and they don't know themselves anymore. And this is how horrific the effect can be with a quiet, discouraged borderline, especially because they just get gone. and they leave you hanging in a world of hurt. It's not your fault. Many men are afraid of their anger. Your anger comes up to protect your really hurt feelings that likely what this borderline just discarding you or discarding you some time ago, it triggered woundedness from your childhood that you may not even be thinking about or know what that is. So it's a double whammy. It's multifaceted. It's multi-layered. But you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't make her go away. You didn't do something that means that you have no worth or value that made her go away and then block you. And now what are you supposed to do? It's a world of hurt, and men really need to get, so do women, if they've been with a borderline but men really need to get into their own healing recovery journeys, working with someone. And I'm out here if I resonate with you, because men have a lot more trouble. Not all men. Women suffer too, obviously, when they've been ghosted and discarded by borderline men. But a lot of men really don't think it's okay, or really aren't sure how, to just really feel their feelings. And then the feelings can be overwhelming. And so even if you're protecting yourself with anger, your feelings, your sadness, your loss, your confusion, so much hurt and pain, protecting it with anger, then that's going to feel out of control too. But the whole thing is just so overwhelming. And sometimes people just can't get out of bed. They just don't see the reason to keep going on. And that really goes back to what's been triggered in you that you might not be aware of, and also how you probably feel like this was your fault. Like if you just could have done something different, maybe it would, she'd still be there, or he'd still be there. But the thing is, they have their own internal stuff going on that you don't get to see with the quiet, discouraged borderline. And so the shock value is horrific because it comes out of nowhere in the here and now of the situation. There is nothing that you could have discerned. There's often nothing they show you. They may need, like I said, they may withdraw, they may take a little space, they might block you, unblock you a few times, but some people in dating a quiet, discouraged borderline for a couple months, 5 months, 7 months, a year, you'll never see that. There's just times when they might say something, it sounds really positive, I got to go here, I got to do this, and so they don't want to see you on a certain day or for a period of time, and they're withdrawing, but you don't know that, and you don't know what's going on with them. So anyway, I think I've gone around this enough, and I maybe repeated myself too much, but I just really wanted you to know, and I want you to be able to listen to this. I want you to know it's not your fault. It's not like if you think, like if you were busy one day and then could be they feel abandoned, but they could have been dealing with something else prior and then they cut you off and you think it's because I didn't go to dinner with them that night, or I had to go visit my mom, or my sister was having an emergency, I had to go there. I had to leave because of a family emergency. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to anybody, including the borderline girlfriend or boyfriend. And they're not going to understand that. They're going to feel abandoned. But that's probably not the only thing. And that's not the reason why all of a sudden then they're gone within a day or two or hours after. And you think, well, if I'd only just said goodbye if I'd only just explained it, but you had an emergency. You had to go. Or if I just would have spent that extra hour or two with them, or if I would have just watched the end of the movie, or if, ad infinitum. It's not your fault. You can heal and recover from this. You are a precious person. You are worth pursuing healing to get yourself back that you lost, and to actually learn to know yourself even better. Healing family of origin woundedness that a lot of people have that they're not even conscious of anymore in their adulthood. But you deserve love, and you need to be able to love you and validate you and have this internal compassion and a functional relationship to and with yourself, so that nobody can ever rock your world and leave you in a place of such cognitive dissonance and agony, pain and anger and maybe so much depression you just feel like you don't want to go on. And some people, they kind of don't make it through. So make sure if you're feeling that way, if you're blaming yourself, just know it wasn't your fault. And you need to really reach out and get help. Because even just beginning to talk about it before even maybe getting into the work of changing, like healing and recovering, you first just need support. You need someone to hear you and listen. And I know I've listened to so many clients, especially, I listen to them in every sessions all the time. But in the first session, many clients coming from just being totally blocked, discarded by a quiet, discouraged borderline, and like, what? And feeling like so much blame and so much shame and like, what's wrong with me? When that's not really what it's about. And even just when clients tell me about it and share it, and I can hear them and I listen to them and I empathize and I validate, that can really help people to not maybe feel tremendously better, but to at least feel like they've got some ground, just a little piece of ground to stand on, just maybe something to hang on to begin to work through this healing process, which can sometimes for some people feel daunting. The quiet, discouraged borderline kind of takes hostages, but it all feels so good. It can be all so positive, and you may never have had a negative experience from that person, and boom, they're gone. And that will throw anybody into a spin cycle of hell. Reach out for help if you haven't yet. If I resonate with you, reach out on my website. Be happy to work with you. But please know it's not your fault. It doesn't define you. You didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're somebody who really cared and loved someone, and you thought you knew who they were, and you talked about the future, and you thought you'd met the man or the woman that was going to be the person that you would grow, your life would be with, and you would grow old together. And the devastation is extremely emotionally dangerous to people's survival. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. And I'm really sorry if this is what you've experienced. It wasn't your fault. You couldn't have changed anything. You are worthy. You matter. And your love was given freely. And maybe people with codependency give a bit too much, and maybe you weren't reciprocated to, and that type of thing. But you can heal this, and you can really move forward in your life so that you will be able to have a relationship that will be mutual and reciprocal, and you will learn how to have healthier boundaries, assert yourself, not avoid conflict avoidance, or not just sort of not ask a question if something's a little bit off. You'll learn to take much better care of yourself. You'll learn to love yourself. Heal the woundedness in your wounded inner child to whatever degree. Family of origin issues to whatever degree. You're worth it. Pain hurts, but pain is the gift. Unfortunately, that doesn't feel like a gift right now. Lean into the adversity, working with somebody who can help you. And if you resonate with me, I can definitely help you, because you matter, you're worthy. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong.
You've been listening to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast with your host, counselor and trauma recovery coach, AJ Mahari. For more or get sessions with AJ, go to ajmahari.ca. See you next time.